Pace cars off the track, and we are green here on WagerTalk TV. NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane as we're going to preview the big race in Dover, the Monster Mile, this Sunday in NASCAR Cup Series. Going to give you a quick recap of Darlington as well. Really adventurous, exciting race there. Well, not really. We had a dominant performer. We're going to get to all that in just a moment, though, here on NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane on WagerTalk TV. First, let's bring in my two usual suspects, my partners in crime here, NASCAR experts, Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com. And, of course, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. And I'm Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com as well. And let's do the Rocky recap. Rocky, Truex, dominant. That maybe could be the recap. Although Kyle Larson made it close there at the end, and then some lap traffic got in the way, and Truex pulled away and never gave up that lead. Rocky, what did he lead? Over 200 and some laps. He won all three stages, including the race. What else in the Rocky recap? Or did that pretty much sum it up for Darlington? Your home track, by the way.
Yeah, that was good, Steve. Martin Truex Jr., he did win his third race of the season here in Darlington, dominating fashion as he won stage one, stage two, and he won the race. He led 248 laps out of 293 to capture his second career win in Darlington, his 30th cup win of his career. Kyle Larson finished second. As you said, he almost caught him at the end, but lap traffic got him. He couldn't quite catch him. Kyle Busch finished third. William Byron was fourth. Denny Hamlin finished in fifth. Harvick, Elliott, Blaney, Buescher, and Newman rounded out the top 10. Blaney had a good run, which was unexpected as we had him as a play against driver here in Darlington. There's that William Byron name again with yet another top 10 finish. He's the hottest driver to pass 10 races with one win and 10 top 10s. Average finish of 5.7 during that time. Hamlin's points leader right now, despite not having a win, but he sits back in the 11th spot in the playoff standings. Harvick sits 12th. Elliott's 13th. Those three are on my watch list to get a win soon. My premium clients went 3-0 this past weekend as we swept in Darlington to put us on the positive side for the year. Very unusual start for us in NASCAR. But we are now on the plus side and very happy for that. I'm now 103 and 61, 63% the last 4 years with all my NASCAR picks. That's pretty much a wrap for Darlington.
Yeah, and I know most of the viewers for this show are loyal and they watch week after week, but if we have any new viewers, a few weeks ago, or really the first few weeks of the season, both Andy and Rocky have had some of the worst bad beats ever as far as leading the entire race till the final lap. Several losses where they led 90%, 99% of the race and didn't get the head-to-head matchup winner. And I somewhat seriously said, this is the time to get on board. You can't predict bad beats, but they do have a tendency to even out. The cream rises to the top. Rocky's long-term NASCAR record, 42 games above 500, 42 races, picks above 500 the last 3 years, tells you all you need to know. And now that he's just broken above the break-even mark after all those bad beats, he's already gotten there this quick. We still got 70% of the season to go. So now's the time to go to sportsmemo.com and get Rocky Atkinson's NASCAR package and make it a 2-for-1 special. Get Andy Lang's at WagerTalk.com as well. We all talk about a lot of the same theories on this show, but it's amazing how often or how seldom they have the exact same picks. So you're getting basically double the value with both their packages. You're not getting the same matchups. You're not getting the same drivers. You're getting double the best bets, double the winners, double the profit in the long run. So Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. And Andy, I'll throw it to you to kind of give us your final take on Darlington. It's a unique track. It's a unicorn, as you said last week. It's the only 1.0-something mile track with alternate banking. So it's not really a mile and a half cookie cutter. We go to Dover this week. We're going to get to that in a moment. That is a 1 mile. I think there's some similarities because it's a banked 1 mile, maybe not a ton. But last week, guys, as we did the show, I started thinking Richmond had more correlation than before. And I'm starting to think that even more after seeing Truex dominant. Larson has been good at Richmond. And I'm almost wondering, as we head into Dover here in a few minutes on this show, that Richmond also might not be a bad track to look at for Dover. So, Andy, I'm interested to hear your takeaways on Darlington. Anybody else stand out to you, and how did you do overall at WagerTalk.com?
I'm going to do something different. I'm going to forego my Darlington recap to go on a little rant here. There is an epidemic going on with crew chiefs and drivers in NASCAR, and it is the staying out when everyone else pits in stage one. It needs to be stopped. We need a vaccine for this. It happened again with Ross Chastain. I do not know what he was thinking or what he was doing. Ross Chastain was doing good. He started in 16th and he made it up to 12th on green flag laps. And this is stage 1, and everyone pits and he stays out. And he gets the lead and he leads some laps. Congratulations. And then he keeps staying out and staying out and staying out. And I don't know what the thought process is doing that early in the race, because even if you do get the yellow, okay, great, you pit and you come out in first place, you're still going to get blown by Truex and Larson and all those guys. And what happened to him was the worst case scenario was he had to come in, he didn't get the yellow, and he came in and came out a lap down. And guess what? He never made it back on the lead lap. For the rest of the race, in that car that was racing in the top 12, he never once made it back onto the lead lap. These crew chiefs trying to outthink themselves. You only do this in stage 3. This doesn't work in stage 1 or stage 2. They got what they deserved. They blew their chance at a top 12 or possibly a top 10 finish. I don't understand it. I don't know why this needs to be explained to them by a gambler on WagerTalk.com. But it's taking over the sport. It needs to be stopped, and that's my rant.
Yeah, a couple of quick takeaways on that. First of all, we're seeing less cautions than ever. We've talked about that, so you have to take that into account, I think, too, with these strategies. And also there's a penalty. The pits close, 2 laps before the end of stage 1 and before the end of stage 2, because they want to prevent the guys that are outside the top 10, top 15 that know they have nothing to gain from short pitting, it's called. So, yeah, I think it's something, Andy, might come into play. And by the way, I appreciate you copying my custom-made dress shirt here today. And so as a thank you, I made some custom-made face masks. Since you want a vaccine for that, look, I got one for you and one for myself. These are custom tailored made to match our shirts. Very expensive. So I'm only going to send you one. And I've got a custom-made black mask for a Rocky shirt, too. So we'll do that for now. Because I know, Andy, you also love the plexiglass that they use on the Fox broadcast to keep the announcers safe. And that actually segues in as we get to the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award, because I make a lot of notes. We kind of narrow it down to 4 or 5 quality nominees. But one of my notes from the pre-race was not only the hideous suits they were wearing, and I know they were doing that on purpose, but they were still hideous even trying to do it on purpose, but they had the full body plexiglass. I didn't realize it was full body. I don't know if that was just because those suits are so bad that they were afraid of, having some extra disease in them or something, but that was a pretty good start to the throwback race. I do love the throwback cars, though. It was somewhat uneventful. I mean, as Rocky said, Truex dominated the race, really never in doubt. But we had a few moments. Just some of my quick takeaways. Elliott and Almirola, the 9 and 10 cars, by the way, both had to start in the rear, failing pre-race inspection. And I bring that up because, Chase Elliott hadn't been great at Darlington, been up and down, has struggled at Richmond. I think those are similar tracks to Dover this week. So we'll see what you all think of Elliott. But Elliott just still does not have it together this season. And keep in mind, he's on that same team with Kyle Larson, who's been dominant, and with Byron and Bowman, who Rocky's mentioned several times are kind of play-on guys now. So keep an eye on Chase Elliott. And Almirola is the other guy that fell to the back. Something's not right with him either. He's been outside like the top 20 in like half the races this year. I mean, he's had some really rough runs. 2 guys I'm staying away until I see something. They're kind of that falling knife scenario that we talk about a lot. Kyle Busch, keep in mind, also cuts a tire. He loses the lead. He was leading the race, and he had to go one more lap to get his 18,000 career laps led, and he cuts a tire. Larson also had a pit speed, and still got all the way up to finish second and almost take the lead late in that race. Alfredo, a guy it seems like we could rename this award for. It's like every other week Alfredo's in the mix. He clips Cole Custer, which gives us a great moment in NASCAR history, in my opinion. They're racing on Mother's Day, which is something they normally don't do. He crashes into the wall, smashes the hood, and it's a happy Mother's Day hood that is bent up and smashed for national TV to see. And it's funny, guys, I was doing some stuff, so I turned the race on live, and I watched the recap on DVR usually so I can take detailed notes. I turned it on live, and about 1 moment after I turned it on, that happened. That was like the first thing I saw on Sunday in the race was a big crashed Happy Mother's Day hood. I don't know if that was an omen. Christopher Bell gets a pit road speeding penalty. Despite that, he still gets all the way up to the top 5 again, just like Larson did later in the race. And Bell clips the wall, running 5th with about 5 laps to go, and finishes like 16th or 18th. Would have had a really nice finish. And Bowman, Corey Andy, who's a great viewer of the show here, he had Bowman in his top 3 predictions, and I commented back with him that he's just so inconsistent. And Corey Andy says, he's been fast, and a lot of it's been bad luck, cut tires and whatnot. Yet, I don't know, guys. It almost seems like some of these guys have that type of bad luck more than others. Bowman, low rear tire right after he pit and has to pit again. You just don't see that happen with Harvick and Kyle Busch and these type of guys, or Keselowski. So just something to keep an eye on. Bowman's been really fast, but it seems like he and Blaney and these other youngsters just can't get out of their own way. So those are some of the quick takeaways. A few of those were our nominees. Andy, who was the winner? I believe we have a tie. I actually voted for Christopher Bell clipping the wall with 5 to go. I wanted to vote for the Mother's Day hood, so I'm hoping that won. But Andy, who are our 2 tie winners for this week's Ricky Stenhouse Unforced Error Award?
Normally I have to make a decision, but I decided to put both on there. Bubba clips Kurt, and Kurt's car catches on fire. So anytime Bubba is involved, we got to put him in there. And then Kurt's car, flames galore coming out the bottom. And the Happy Mother's Day crumpled hood was so laugh out loud funny in the moment. It looked like a statue that they built for the race. Like it was so perfectly crumpled up. It was so NASCAR that you have this Happy Mother's Day crumpled hood. So congratulations to Bubba clipping Kurt's car catching on fire, and Cole Custer with the Happy Mother's Day crumple hood. We have dual winners this week.
And it's very fitting. I think they, Rocky, I think you pointed out that they hit the same spot basically, or was that maybe Almirola when he, but they're basically, the wreck was in the same part of the wall, same kind of hood damage. We got flames from Kurt Busch. And if you think back, the original Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Award a year ago involved Stenhouse Jr. catching on fire like the first lap of the race. That's what kind of gave Andy the idea for the award. So whenever flames are involved and Bubba Wallace in the same nominee, I think it automatically defaults as a tie for first place. And then the crushed Mother's Day hood with Cole Custer as the co-winner as well for the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Unforced Error Award. Let's move over to Dover. And you guys, Stenhouse Jr. is actually not bad on these little oval. Like Bristol's another track that might translate. Stenhouse is decent there. So Rocky, I'm going to throw it to you. Give me your general handicap of Dover, and also like some tracks you look at. Once again, be very careful, viewers, for looking at the 1 mile tracks, because the other 2 true 1 mile tracks are Phoenix and New Hampshire, which are flat tracks. We've debated this last year. I think maybe Andy said he uses those a little bit more than Rocky and I do, but Phoenix and New Hampshire are flat tracks, like a half-mile Martinsville. I think a half-mile Bristol translates more to the 1 mile Dover. I think Darlington last week might translate, although it's a much different surface. Dover is concrete. Darlington has the most abrasive asphalt tires, more of an issue. But Rocky, I'm starting to think Richmond also correlates a little bit to Dover, just like it did to Darlington. So Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com. Give me a top 2, maybe 1 or 2 picks here, and also your thoughts overall on handicapping Dover and what you look at.
Well, first off, I look at track history, and I dig into that pretty heavy, and I look at track type. And with that, I do use New Hampshire a little bit, and I do use Phoenix a little bit, and I do use Bristol a little bit. I think there's some similarities there. And you probably could factor in Darlington or Richmond if you wanted to. I don't use them that much with it, but you probably could factor that in as well. One guy I'm looking at to win it here this weekend, Kevin Harvick. He hasn't won this year. He's due. He has 3 wins, 10 top 5 finishes, 21 top 10 finishes, and 40 races here in Dover. Average finish is 13.2 at this track. He's been the best driver the past 3 years here with 2 wins, 5 top 5 finishes, and 6 top 10 finishes in those 6 races with an average finish of 3.3. So Harvick should be very strong here this weekend. Another guy I'm looking at is Martin Truex Jr. Truex Jr. also has 3 wins here. He has 9 top 5s, 18 top 10 finishes in 30 races here in Dover. Average finish 11.5 at this track. Over the past 3 years here in Dover, Truex Jr. has been the second best driver with 1 win, 5 top 5 finishes, and 5 top 10 finishes with an average finish of 4.3. So definitely looking at Harvick and Truex this weekend.
Yeah, and once again, if Darlington does translate, those 2 led the most laps last week at Darlington. Truex, of course, 248, as you mentioned, Rocky. But Kevin Harvick was tied with Andy's boy Ross Chastain for 10 laps led in the race. Kyle Busch, who finished 3rd, led 9. And we talked about, how Busch and Harvick, we've kind of written them off until we see something. I know Andy, Rocky didn't exactly jump off the Harvick bandwagon as quickly as we did, and he's been right. Harvick is still in contention, but he's been very good here like he has many other tracks. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, who's somebody you're looking at here at Darlington, not Darlington, at Dover this week, the other D, going in alphabetical order, Darlington to Dover. Dover, the 1 mile monster mile this Sunday.
Ross Chastain's 10 laps should be disavowed from the record books.
Is there an asterisk?
They shouldn't
Put an asterisk
count.
next to it.
Asterisks by those. Yeah, for the record, I didn't like throw Harvick under the bandwagon. I just wasn't betting on him. I didn't bet against him. I just said he's not the dominant guy that he was. So, okay, here's a guy I think we need to look at. So I'm not even going to tell you his name. 4th last week at Darlington, has a win this season, and he's 3rd in points. So what is Logano, Larson, Harvick? This is William Byron. This is a guy I think we have to start taking seriously as a top-tier guy. He's already in the playoffs, and now he's just racing for points. This is a guy that can take some chances to go get some more wins, and I'm loving the consistency. He's doing it on all different types of tracks, and the last race last year at Dover, he finished 3rd. So he has upside on all tracks, and he's shown upside at Dover. And for whatever reason, we're just not talking about him in the same breath as Harvick and Kyle Busch. And I think we need to. So I think William Byron needs to start making my card a little bit more.
Yeah, I love it. And something about Byron, just a couple things. First of all, I don't think he started racing until he was like a teenager, and he's only 23 still. And he's been in the Cup Series for like 3 years now at least. So he was like 20. He was still at Liberty. You'll see him drive that Liberty car. He went to Liberty University as he was racing. I mean, he was still a college student. So there's tremendous upside with this guy who won the Camping World Truck Series Rookie of the Year in 16. He wins the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship in 17 as the Rookie of the Year as well. And then he's basically in Cup right after that. So, I mean, it's not like this guy came in at his prime. This guy came in as like a single-A baseball player in the pros, and there's tremendous upside. And Andy, I didn't even realize he was 3rd in the points. I don't pay a lot of attention. From a handicapping perspective, we don't look at points much. I knew he finished 4th, so I knew who you were talking about when you said that, but I would not have known he was 3rd in points.
Nobody does. Nobody would guess that. Nobody would guess Byron is ahead of Larson and Harvick and Chase Elliott and Brad and Kyle Busch. So,
yeah, and you think of like a young Logano is kind of who I think of. He came in there, had a lot of potential, and we saw how good he got. But yeah, Rocky and Tipsy, I put Byron and Bowman in that same category. But yeah, if you look at Byron, he's been much more consistent, and that's been my knock on Bowman. It's just the inconsistency. So yeah, I'm with you, Andy. I think maybe I need to start going look at William Byron a little bit more. And by the way, guys and viewers, that's where the value is of NASCAR. I mean, the odds makers have gotten very sharp. We talk about how late the head-to-head matchup odds come out now in many books. We talk about how normally our top 3 or 4 picks each week are the odds favored. I mean, it's because we are sharp like the odds makers are. This is where you find value in any sport. It's jumping on a guy before the odds makers and the betting public catch on. And the fact that Andy Lang said that none of us, none of the public, including myself, would know he was 3rd in points. This is an under-the-radar type of guy. So I really like where you're going with that, Andy. William Byron at Dover and in future races as well. Rocky, who's somebody else you're looking at Dover this week?
Just want to mention that I definitely agree with Andy with Byron. He's the hottest driver the past 10 races. He's been in the top 10, if not every race, almost every race this year. Very, very good driver there. I'll definitely not be playing against him this weekend for sure. Another guy I'm looking at is Kyle Larson. Larson has 1 win here, 6 top 5 finishes, 9 top 10s, and 12 races here in Dover. Average finish of 7.4 at this track, which is the best among all active drivers. Over the past 3 years, Larson has been the 3rd best driver here in Dover. 1 win, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s in 4 races with an average finish of 6.5. So don't be surprised to see Kyle Larson running at the front again this weekend.
Yeah, I definitely would not be surprised to see Kyle Larson. This is a track he's done well at, and he's basically been good everywhere this year. And keep in mind, all these past track histories with Kyle Larson, including Dover, has been with a weaker 42 team. He's now in Hendrick 5 car, which was Jimmy Johnson's team last year. So he's gone from a slightly below average team in the 42 to like one of the greatest of all times, the 48 car, which is now the 5 car. So we know he can get it done. He's a guy that's been pretty much an automatic play on every week for me in the right situations, and this seems like another one of those. Andy Lang, what else are you looking at for Dover this Sunday?
Well, I like to look at momentum coming into this race. We talked about what tracks can you compare. So I just kind of took a little hodgepodge average finish of Darlington, Richmond, Martinsville, Phoenix, a little bit of everything. The top 5 average finishes, Martin Truex, no surprise there. And second is Denny Hamlin. And I'm going to have to go with Denny Hamlin this week. Take out the restrictor plate tracks on the Daytona road course. He's got the best average finish in NASCAR, average finish of 5.2. He won the first Dover race in 2020. Last 6 races at Dover, he's got the 4th best running position, which is a stat I like to look at. Like, finishes are one thing, but where were you running throughout the race? That tells you pretty good. Like, was he running back unlucky finish, or was he running up front unlucky finish? So a lot to like with Denny Hamlin. You got to believe the floodgates are going to open. I would be stunned if he didn't finish the year with several wins on his plate, just because that team is so good and he's so good. So I'll take Denny Hamlin as a guy to watch this week.
Yeah, and I mean, the 2 teams for me, guys, this year have been obviously Hendrick's been good with Byron and Larson, but Elliott, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of underachieved. Bowman's been inconsistent. Hendrick's very good, but I felt like Penske was the team to beat for the first month or two with Keselowski, Logano, and Blaney. But over the last month or so, it really does seem like Gibbs Racing is the team to beat. And we've seen Kyle Busch reborn. You know, I mean, he wins a race. He finishes 3rd last week. He's in contention to win again. Truex Jr. dominated last week, as we said. And let's not forget Christopher Bell's now in the 20 car. You know, we look at Eric Jones having good numbers at some of these tracks, but he was in the 20 car at the time. Now it's Christopher Bell, who I mentioned earlier, was top 5 till he clips the wall with 5 laps to go. And then there's Denny Hamlin, you know, teammates with Truex, who's we've all established is great at this track, was great last week. Yeah, Andy, it's just a matter of time. I mean, he's been so consistent this year, so many top 3s, top 5s without a win, that you know he's hungry for it. And Dover's been a very good track for Denny Hamlin, as have many tracks in recent years. Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com. You can also find Rocky on Twitter at Rocketman Sports. Andy Lang and myself, Steve Merril, we're both at WagerTalk.com. Andy's on Twitter at Bump Sports. Myself, I'm at Steve Merril, 2 R's, 1 L. Rocky, how about a little bit of a long shot? I mean, what were you, 300-1 a couple of weeks ago with Eric Jones, I think. And I mean, Rocky is taking long shot to a whole new level. And I can't wait till one of these hits, because we will have promotional sound bites for the next 5 years for NASCAR in the fast lane. So keep throwing them out there, Rocky. I probably oversold you here. You probably got like a 20-1 guy this week. But who are you looking at as a little bit outside the box, off the radar guy, maybe?
No, the one that stood out to me this week was Ryan Newman at 200-1. Still a huge long shot, but Ryan Newman has won here 3 times, so he knows how to get around his track. Although he's on the downward swing of his career, I guess you could say. He does have 3 wins here, 7 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and 38 races here in Dover. Average finish 14.9 at this track. To pick a long shot like that to win is crazy. You know, if you can sprinkle a little teeny bit on it if you want to. Don't go overboard with these long shots we release on here. Check out some head-to-head matchups with these guys, and you can probably find some real good value there. But look for Ryan Newman to run, I don't know, top 10, top 15. And I'll be looking for a head-to-head matchup with him.
Yeah, Newman's a guy who used to be really good at Dover. And once again, it's a 1 mile concrete. I don't want to say it's a unicorn because there's other 1 miles, but Phoenix and New Hampshire, as I said, are very flat. This is kind of a standalone track, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm going to start looking at Darlington and Richmond a little bit more than I have in the past. Half-mile Bristol, concrete half-mile Bristol. By the way, most viewers realize this, but don't look at the Bristol results this year. That was on dirt. Keep in mind, you do not want to look at Bristol from a month ago or this season. I just want to point that out in case I know the races all run together sometimes and we forget what was what. But yeah, Bristol was dirt this past spring, so we do not want that race factored in. Andy, as Rocky said, these long shots aren't necessarily guys we're saying to go put a big bet on at 200-1. A teeny sprinkle, 0.1% would still be a nice payday. So nothing wrong with that. But, we're going to get to a play against driver here in a moment. Play on, play against guys, especially these under the radar guys, are very powerful with head-to-head matchups. Also for fantasy, you got to have those mid-tier guys for fantasy. So that's probably the best use of a guy like Ryan Newman. You're going to get him in that mid-price range, which helps fill out your 5 or 6 game, lineup for the daily fantasy as well. So Andy, I know you look at fantasy as well when you do these. What's kind of a long shot, off the radar, whatever you want to call it, guy for Dover for you?
Yeah, right. I would say if there's a driver over the years I've made the most money off of in head-to-heads, it might actually be Ryan Newman. He's just a great head-to-head driver, always underrated, has been for years, and he's still chugging along. Great finish at Darlington, easily won his head-to-head, so good for him. I don't know if you really want to go bonkers here with a long shot. What would What would be the best case scenario for a driver to win a NASCAR race this year? What driver has a Netflix show that they're filming right now?
No, he's your play against, Andy. We're not doing play against right now. We're doing long shots.
You only need one what late caution to maybe get someone to the front. Maybe he does the pit stop strategy correctly and does it in stage 3. Maybe you get some wonkiness. It would make sense. I mean, we've seen weirder things in NASCAR. We saw Paul Menard spin himself into the infield on purpose so his teammate could get a restart to win the race, which worked. We've seen wonkiness from NASCAR. I don't know, a sprinkle on Bubba Wallace, maybe like $2 every race to get Bubba Wallace a win. I could see it happening. I could. You got to admit the marketing, the marketing would now. In order for this to happen, he's got to be on the lead lap. So it's an uphill battle with this. So that's the downside to this play is your guy might be 3 laps down. But I'm just saying, don't be surprised if he wins one of these one time. Don't be surprised.
I think the custom-made face mask I gave you, Andy, was cutting off your oxygen supply because that was supposed to be the play on, not the play against segment. We've had Bubba Wallace just typed in for the play against for like 3 weeks straight, I think. So definitely caught off guard by that one. And by the way, looking at DraftKings right now, they're both Newman and Bubba, both 200 to 1. They're both 40 to 1 for a top 3, and they're both 4.5 to 1 for a top 10. Identical odds on both of them. So it's somewhat ironic that those are our 2 long shots. But hey, I like a good conspiracy theory as the next guy. You know that, Andy Lang. So hey, I'm as cynical as they come when it comes to NASCAR, the NBA playoffs, all this stuff. So would not disagree with you. I think that's the one big risk on playing against Bubba is that probably does happen at some point this season, whether it's this week or not. Like you said, they're like, Bubba, we're going to give you the win, but you got to be on the final lap. We're going to give it to you last week or the week before, but you got to be on the final lap, man. You're killing us here. You got to give us a chance. So maybe a little in-game, if you can find those in-game odds, if he's on the lead lap with 50 to go, 50 to 1 maybe in-game, that might be the way to play it, Andy. So we'll see.
Oh, if he's in the top 10, the flag-waving guy's arm's going to get tired from all the yellow flags they'll be throwing in the last 10 laps. If he's anywhere near the top 10, just yellow,
I'm going to use that as a bonus free. That's a bonus free play for the show I'm going to get to right now is if you can get in-game lines. A lot of them have the in-game adjusted to win odds, but if you can get in-game cautions, in-game to win, and Bubba's on that lead lap, hammer them all. Hammer the over cautions and hammer Bubba at 20 or 50 to 1 and take a flyer. You're going to be right once this season. Rocky, so that might be your play against guy, Rocky, or is it somebody different? Who's a play against guy for you this week at Dover?
Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. I play against drivers Bubba Wallace.
Oh, I didn't know.
Hey, painted in the live show here. I got to stick with it. Seriously, Bubba Wallace is my play against driver this weekend. He has no wins, no top 5 finishes, no top 10s, and 6 races here at Dover. Average finish of 23.8, his normal numbers. And like you said, if he's on the lead lap at the end, that's the big if. Play against Bubba. You can find a lot of good head-to-head matchups. The only problem is the odds makers are catching up with it, and they're juicing it a little bit. You know, you're going to see some minus 165s or higher. So it's, make sure you find something a little bit better than that. But I'll be looking to play against Bubba again this week.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't know that was Rocky's. I saw Rocky's reaction when he said Bubba, but I didn't know if that was your play against guy. But it's been pretty consistent. One of you guys have had on most shows. And you're right, Rocky. I do think there was some value to be had the first couple months because he's a big name, kind of a public name now, even though he's not in a good car, a good driver, good team, whatnot. But it does look like the odds makers are catching up to that. So shop around and keep in mind there's different matchups at different sports books, everybody. It's so important to have multiple sports books, multiple lines, whether it's basketball, football, especially NASCAR, because you don't even get the same head-to-head matchups at every sports book. So you can find Bubba against one guy, find him against another guy elsewhere, and maybe find a better head-to-head. So that's why when we're saying play against guys, we're giving these out general because come Saturday and Sunday, there'll be a lot more matchups out there, and hopefully you can use this information to kind of put together a nice head-to-head winner in the Dover race. Andy, Bubba's obviously not your play against guy, so you've got 36 other drivers to choose from. Well, I'll throw out the 3 or 4 we've already mentioned, so we'll say 32 other guys. who's a good play against at Dover for you?
Well, no, absolutely he's a play against. I mentioned Bubba in this segment called Longshots, as in not expected to do well and surprises everyone when he does well. Like, I didn't mention him in the Who Does to Watch this week. I mentioned him in the Longshots. Big difference. So, all right, drivers to fade. I get this narrowed down to one, and I do think we can get some good head-to-head matchups. So I took those previous tracks, Darlington, Richmond, Martinsville, Phoenix, look at some recent numbers and who really struggled. 3 really popped out to me. Brad Keselowski, Kurt Busch, and Michael McDowell. Cross-referenced those with their finishes at Dover. Brad's been okay at Dover, so I eliminated him. Kurt's been pretty good. He has a bad average finish at Dover recently, but in one of those races, he had an early accident and finished last, so it skewed his average finish. But Michael McDowell has been bad at Dover, and he's been bad on some of these shorter tracks this year. Average finish of 24.8 on those 4 tracks I mentioned earlier, with an average running position of 24. So in those races, he struggled, and numbers look very similar at Dover. He cannot crack the top 23. So I would hope to get a matchup with someone like Tyler Reddick. Maybe jumps out to me. I would love to get Tyler Reddick versus Michael McDowell. Maybe we get some added value because Michael McDowell has the win. But, yeah, I expect Michael McDowell to be around the 25th position, probably not cracking the top 20.
And what's funny about that, Andy, is Michael McDowell might very well be our long shot or dark horse next week, because I believe they're in Austin next week, if I'm not mistaken. And Michael McDowell, it's quite simple. He's very good on the restrictor plates. He was strong at Talladega. He, of course, won the Daytona 500 this year. He was good in the Daytona road course race, and he's actually not bad on road courses in general. And if you throw those 2 types of tracks out, I mean, he's not even a top 20 guy historically at best in any of these other races. And here again, we have the Bubba Wallace factor, the hype factor. You know, people know him. Same thing. And I like Michael McDowell a lot, by the way. He's one of my favorite drivers. I'd like to see him do well. But he became, I don't want to say a household name, but he became known after winning the Daytona 500. And I think there is a little bit of value fading people. You know, it's a public name. It's like fading the public teams in the NFL, which you guys know I love to do. And, yeah, he's been really bad on intermediate regular tracks. He's 1 to 2 mile tracks. He's been actually above average on the restrictor plates and the road courses. So Mike McDowell is a guy you can make money with and against in certain situations, and this is definitely one of those weeks. And normally, you know, it's funny, Andy, last year, if you'd said that, you wouldn't have found a head-to-head matchup with him. But now that he's won the Daytona 500, they are out there, and he's able to play against Mike McDowell. Rocky's playing against Bubba Wallace. Andy is also not saying Bubba's going to have a good run, but he has the NASCAR conspiracy theory in full throttle, which I somewhat agree with. And he's saying if he's on the lead lap, he might be worth a live 50-1 in-game or a 200-1 sprinkle before, just for that one random race in which they let him win. And we've had you guys the other days, we've had so many different winners. Do they dare? Well, they might want him in the chase. There again, he's going to have to probably win to get in the chase. So you're talking me into it, Andy Lang. God, put my tinfoil hat on after the show. You're talking me into more conspiracies here. I love it. But once again, let's get to some free actionable info. You know, play on guys, play against guys. You just got some head-to-head matchups right there probably. But, Rocky, give me an actual head-to-head matchup that you're looking for as we head into the weekend here for the free play on the show.
I'm going to look to play Alex Bowman over Christopher Bell. Bowman has no wins here, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, and 10 races here in Dover. Average finish is 20.8 at this track. But more recently, he has been a lot stronger here, as he has 3 top 5s the past 6 races here, average finish of 13.7 during that time. Bell has no wins, no top 5s, no top 10s, and 2 races here in Dover, average finish of 24.5 at this track. So I'm going to look for Bowman to have a consistent race here and maybe run near the front and finish ahead of Christopher Bell here.
Yeah, and you know my thing on Bowman is that he's one of those young, talented, inconsistent guys like Blaney, a little bit like Chase Elliott, but then again, so is Christopher Bell. So you've kind of negated that concern with the Bowman play here with another inconsistent guy who I've referenced several times in the show, was top 5 until he hits the wall with 5 laps to go and finishes like 16th or 18th, whatever it was last week. So, yeah, you got 2 young guys. Now, Bell, of course, is in the 20 car this year with his Gibbs Racing. That'd be my concern. But Hendrick and Bowman have been just as strong in many tracks. And I do think Bowman's flying a bit under the radar. And Andy, of course, you mentioned William Byron. That's his teammate as well. 2 up-and-comers there in that Hendrick stable. Andy Lang, you've had some creative free plays. What's one you're looking at here this week for Dover?
This one jumped out cash this a couple times, and it's available right now for DraftKings players. I've already locked this in myself. Kyle Busch over Chase Elliott. The last 4 races, Kyle Busch, he's really come alive. 4-0 head-to-head against Chase Elliott. The last 5 races, even including Talladega, he's averaging the second best finish in NASCAR behind only William Byron. So the last 5 races, Byron and Busch are your top 2. Chase Elliott had some good finishes at Dover in the past, but in the last 3 races, he's really struggled. Kyle Busch is 3-0 head-to-head against him at Dover in the last 3 Dover races. So sometimes you find a play that it just keeps hitting over and over and over. So I will take Kyle Busch over Chase Elliott again.
Yeah, I mean, you got several things working there, Andy. I talk about the inconsistency youth factor. Elliott somewhat applies to that. Kyle Busch is as consistent and veteran as they come. We talk about the Ninja, Keselowski, your boy the Ninja, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch. And Ryan Newman, you referenced earlier, has been a great head-to-head guy for you, and I wanted to chime in on that and say that's another wily veteran. Newman's not in the machine anymore to win. He's a little probably hesitant as well after that big crash, but he knows how to stay in the top 20. Kyle Busch is almost an automatic top 10 like Harvick every race, even if they're not in contention to win. And now he's running well enough to win. He wins 2 weeks ago, finishes second stage 2, third in the race last week. Chase Elliott, meanwhile, outside the top 10 in stage 2, finishes a misleading 7th. He only had the 10th best driver rating, did not lead a lap. Kyle Busch did everything better last week. He's in better current form, and he's been good at Dover, and better than Elliott probably long term. And by the way, if it does translate to Richmond, one of Elliott's worst tracks and Kyle Busch's best track. So a lot of things working for you there with Kyle Busch over Elliott. And I think the market still has not caught up there. Again, we talk about the public, the defending Cup Series champ. It's going to take some time for people to fade Chase Elliott comfortably, but it's been working this season. So once again, Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. He's got Kyle Busch over Chase Elliott as a free play. His best bets, of course, his strongest plays will be ready this weekend at WagerTalk.com. You can also find on Twitter at Bump Sports. Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. Over 42 net races, net games up in NASCAR the last 3 years, over 100 wins, and he's up for the season. It's going to continue to add to the profit. He'll have his best bets at SportsMemo.com this weekend with the free play for the show. He's got Bowman over Christopher Bell in a head-to-head. And also, Rocky puts up a lot of great free information on Twitter at Rocketman Sports. And then myself, Steve Merril, I'm on WagerTalk.com. I want to quickly mention, if you get my baseball right now through the All-Star break or longer, you get the entire NBA for free, the rest of the regular season and the entire playoffs for free. It's a 2-for-1 special. No code needed. Just get my baseball through the All-Star break or longer right now at WagerTalk.com. And you get all the NBA for the rest of the season, the playoffs and finals for free. That's a $300 value for free. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, and on Twitter at Steve Merril, 2Rs, 1L. Hey, guys, great show as always. We'll be back next week with more NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane right here on WagerTalk TV. In the meantime, do us a favor. If you like the show, give it a thumbs up. More importantly, subscribe, as I'm sure many of you already have, to WagerTalk TV for great content for all sports. And also leave us comments below. I love reading the comments. As you all know, I'm interactive with you. I'd love to see your top 3 picks this week, because I really do honestly believe this is the sharpest viewer base for any show we have here on WagerTalk TV. So I'd love the support. I'd love your feedback. I love the comments and your predictions below. And be sure to check back each and every day all week right here on WagerTalk TV for more great information. In the meantime, have a great weekend. Best of luck as always. We'll talk to you next week for more NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane.